Hey there and welcome back to another Miraculous Ladybug video. And we are back for yet another Thomas Astruc controversy. And don't get me wrong, Astruc losing it on Twitter and fighting against fans and trolls alike is not a very uncommon thing to see in your day-to-day life. I feel like he can't go more than a couple of hours before he rises to somebody's bait and gets heated online. But usually these are just small things, and we have to wait a fair while for the truly juicy Astruc drama to surface. But, as you may or may not know, he very recently did just that when he seemingly went after Encanto in quite a heavy-handed way, essentially calling the film mediocre in every possible way. Oof. And as you can probably imagine, a lot of people did not take his criticisms too well, and in response did the exact same thing to his own show, and thus we find ourselves in this toxic wasteland of vengeful tweets and insulting opinions. So today, I kind of want to talk my way through the drama that's unfolding here, looking at his criticisms and the fan response, and give my takeaway on whether all of this is justified or just plain ridiculous. Anyway, before we properly dive into this, we should probably start by taking a look at the post that really kick-started this whole thing. After he saw the film Encanto, he made a Facebook post in which he dishes out a bit of heavy-handed criticism for the movie. He starts off nice, by saying that visually and technologically, the film looks phenomenal, but that basically everything else about the film was poorly done, with weak songs that didn't linger in your mind after you heard them at all, a weak plot that felt undercooked and didn't have enough time to develop, weak stakes with no real important conflict, too many characters that were underdeveloped and not given enough time to flourish in the confines of the story, and then I'm pretty sure he even complains about the voiceover work at some point. Specifically that the voice actors mix and match which lines have an accent and which don't. And then I felt like he implied that the film is only worth watching with the sound turned off instead because only the visuals actually matter. And this was a pretty big yikes moment for me. Like seriously, huge yikes. Because I feel like this was a very harsh criticism for the film by somebody who should be a little bit more empathetic to the plight of developing animated content, right? No? Maybe he wasn't as harsh. Maybe what he meant got lost in translation. But I feel like he was altogether too hard on the film. And don't get me wrong, I see where he's coming from a little bit. Some of the issues he had with the film were things that I definitely felt could have been improved upon. But at the same time, the way he went about distributing that criticism was a bit too harsh. Whilst things could have been improved, I don't think that the story and the songs and the pacing was as bad as he implied. Maybe they weren't perfect, but they were still at a higher standard than you can expect from most other animated studios. It's just we've come to expect a little bit more from a Disney film. And so I think that often makes us judge them a bit more harshly than's actually fair or realistic. And it's clear that this heavy-handed approach to criticising the film has been one of the primary instigators of this current drama. Yes, if he'd been more polite, there would have still been backlash on him, because fandoms be crazy at the best of times and people get insanely upset at the drop of a hat, but I think it would have been a bit of a lesser controversy, a drop in the ocean. But instead, this has turned into a full-on hurricane, and brought a storm of anger and rage from both sides of the equation, which mixed together criticism, some justified, some ridiculous, and personal attacks into one toxic concoction. So yeah, scrolling through Twitter is very lovely at the moment. And so, now that we've taken a look at the Astruc perspective on Encanto, and acknowledged that whilst he may have had some valid points, he phrased them way too harshly, and didn't acknowledge the positives either, we should take a look at the fan response. And for the most part, I think the response can be bunched into two main categories: insane/stupid and legitimate criticism. And of course, we'll start off with the insanity/stupidity. And these are basically the responses that instead of critiquing his opinions or trying to make him understand that his own works have their own issues, they just attack him as a person. Responses that call him racist or sexist or homophobic or a hack writer with no talent. That attack the man behind the computer instead of making any sort of effort to refute his opinion at all. Basically responses designed to try and hurt him. These are truly smooth-brained. And they're so deeply, deeply frustrating. Because of course, these types of things then go and trigger his own supporters and get his hackles up, and so the actual legit discussion and criticism gets lost, because obviously people want to talk about the more controversial and eye-catching tweets and discussion. So yeah, these kinds of comments really don't add anything at all to the conversation, and in the end they kind of prove Thomas's argument that criticism can't be given by the average person. Because these are the tweets that get the most attention, they become the most popular, and these equally wild takes in turn stifle any meaningful debate and make it so that nobody even wants to be rational or reasonable at all. And then on top of the insanity, there's the stupidity. The comments that don't take into account the actual difference in the context that we're dealing with here. And most of the time for me, it's been, oh, Miraculous is animated like trash compared to Encanto. Oh, the Miraculous song sucked compared to Encanto, etc., etc. Yeah, no shit. One is a film made by Disney for over $100 million that's specifically an animated musical film. That's what it is. That is the main attraction. And the other is a made-for-TV superhero cartoon with a target audience of young girls on a relatively shoestring budget that did a one-off musical episode that lasted 20 minutes. Clearly, one is going to have better animation and music. Like, come on. Let's be a bit more reasonable here. But don't get me wrong, I'm not just some Astruc defender. There has been a lot of legitimate criticism that stemmed from these tweets. And the first of these being, isn't it a little bit harsh and a tad unprofessional for a showrunner with a fairly large audience to be so openly critical of somebody else's work? Is there no sense of professional courtesy here? For me, this is the equivalent of tearing your classmate's essay to shreds in front of the entire class, or your boss belittling you in front of your co-workers, or another company mocking the product of their competitor openly and publicly. I just feel like this kind of critique and discourse belongs behind closed doors when it's being done by a member of the same industry. Because ultimately, their words hold more weight than the words of a regular critic or a random fan on the internet. I feel like it's just begging for controversy and for arguments to erupt amongst the respective fandoms, and it's just a bit of an irresponsible use of his audience. And then on top of that, there's actually been a lot of genuinely insightful criticism that's seemingly gone ignored or has been brushed off by Astruc and his more ardent defenders. I won't get too deep into it because I've made videos on this stuff before and all that, but genuine criticisms of his writing or world building or character development, things that he critiqued about in Encanto, get brushed off as works in progress. We get told to wait for the finished product, to wait for the end before reviewing. But come on, that's not how this works, and it makes him seem a bit hypocritical to expect his own fans to sit down and shut up, but then expect people to leave him alone when he attacks somebody else's work. Imagine being served up bad food and being told to keep eating it and wait until the end of the meal to complain after you try to complain to the chef. You'd be mad. I know you would be. So why are we expected to have this weird-ass double standard for TV shows? And I see it so much. Mid-season something seems bad or like it's taken a very negative turn or made weird decisions, and showrunners and many fans say, "Oh, wait for the end before complaining, mate. Be a bit reasonable." And why? These are often hours of my life I have to waste before I can air my concerns. Hours of my life? Dank. And in respect to Miraculous, I've seen tweets talking about how you need to wait until the end of Season 5, which hasn't even aired yet, we're still in Season 4, to be able to have a true critique of Season 4 because it's setting things up. No, mate, that's just not how it should work. Ever heard of pilot episodes? You don't get the full story in one episode, but it has to be captivating and good before executives are going to decide to make a full-on series. I just don't see how you can deliver the argument that you need an extra 21 more episodes to tell the story for it not to suck. Same principle here. Things should not only be good in hindsight. If it's no good at the time, it's not a very successful writing choice to me. And I'm not saying that Season 4 sucks. I've actually rather enjoyed it a lot. But I just hate this line of defense so much. Now anyway, at the end of the day, I think it's reasonable to say that everybody's being kind of toxic at this point. People should not be harassing Astruc or being rude to him regardless of his opinions on the quality of a film. This is not some grand social issue for you to fight against. He didn't like the movie. That's it. Whilst critiquing his opinions on Encanto or the quality of his own show should be fair game, attacking him himself serves no purpose other than to be toxic. Attack the opinion, not the person. Otherwise, your statements add nothing of value at all. But, as always, those were just my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of all this? Do you think he has a point? Or maybe you think he needs to take a step back and reassess his social media use? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to leave a comment and let me know.